Do Palestinians as a whole want to eliminate Israel and Jews or coexist? The answer depends on who you listen to and what you want to believe. As an example, Mosab Hassan Yousef, son of Hamas, believes that the vast majority of Palestinians are indistinguishable from Hamas and want to destroy Israel and all Jews everywhere. If you don't know who he is, let me give you a quick background. Mosab Hassan Yousef he's the son of one of the founders of Hamas. And he was a dedicated soldier. He was arrested a number of times by Israeli intelligence and kept in custody for a long time, and eventually came to believe that his father and Hamas were completely wrong, and he became a spy for Israel. And at the end, he was in jeopardy of being found out and assassinated. And he, for his own good, Israel chose to terminate his role as an agent. And he fled to the United States, where he sought asylum. And his Israeli handler came and spoke on his behalf for him to receive his grant of asylum. And since then, he has been an extremely outspoken critic of Hamas and Palestinian terrorism. He also wrote a book about his experience, which is, I think, a very informative read. It's called Son of Hamas. I've read it. And I've been at two different events where he spoke, and I find him to be very engaging and very worth listening to. On the other hand, there are people on the other side who say that most Palestinians just want to live in peace and they want to live side by side with Jews and Israelis. And you can find polling information and surveys that go both directions. And so how do you weigh in on this? How do you come to a conclusion from the data that's out there? It's very difficult. Recently, in the last several months, there were Palestinian protests in Gaza against Hamas. And it wasn't widely publicized. I've seen some video of it. And so people will cite that as an example of the hostility towards Hamas and that Palestinians want to move on from Hamas. But it's hard to tell. We all have our biases. I certainly have mine. My overriding bias with all things is to believe that every society, every group of people has its good, and I always want to look for that good. And so in my heart of hearts, I want to believe that most Palestinians want to live in peace. But I also have to temper myself with reality and try to gauge based on the facts. And as I always say on these videos, be a critical thinker, do your research, come to your own conclusions. And in this instance, it's very difficult to come to a conclusion. And this is why. There is no question that Hamas controls Gaza. There was an election in 2006. This is after Israel pulled out of Gaza entirely, civilians as well as soldiers. And in the election, the Palestinians voted Hamas in control. And it's also irrefutable that Hamas's founding charter in 1988 calls for the destruction of Israel. So you look at that and you say, well, there you go. That's the end of it. But since then, the Palestinians have lived under a brutal Hamas regime. And it's easy to understand that there would be now great resistance to Hamas and a parting of philosophical ways. But you can't really make very much sense of competing poles, and here's why. There is also no question that those in Gaza who openly disagree with Hamas risk death, and many of them are killed, and brutally so, thrown off rooftops. So, how do you determine, based on knowing that, how people really feel as a whole in Gaza when they live under a terrorist regime and their ability to speak out uh, is met with the risk of death? So I don't know. And I don't know what to suggest to you. Just be aware of those circumstances and how difficult it is to assess the situation. There are two very compelling considerations, though, in evaluating how the Palestinian in the street, the man in the street, views this. And I'm going to go into that in our next video.